What happens when an entire nation's military command looks up at the sky and realizes they are completely blind, but there isn't a single bomb falling from the clouds? Because for exactly 4 hours in the middle of the night over Tehran, that is not a hypothetical question. It is the reality the Iranian leadership had to live through, and it is a reality they are desperately trying to ensure the world never fully understands. Before we go any deeper into how 4 hours quietly rewrote the balance of power in the Middle East, do one thing for me right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. If you want real, deep breakdowns of how power actually moves behind closed doors instead of just reading surface-level headlines, this channel is built specifically for you. For decades, the Islamic Republic of Iran operated under one core belief. They believed that as long as they controlled their own airspace, as long as their radar systems could track incoming threats, and as long as their missile batteries stood ready, no outside power could force them into submission without triggering an all-out catastrophic war. That single belief supported 40 years of regional strategy. It gave them the confidence to project power, enforce control over vital sea lanes, and project strength to their own public. Then came a silent, unannounced 4-hour window where every single radar screen across northern Iran simply went black. No sirens sounded across the city, no surface-to-air missile batteries tracked a target. No fighter jets scrambled from military runways. Across the capital city of Tehran, military commanders sat in darkened bunkers, staring at monitors displaying static, while high-altitude platforms moved through their sky completely unhindered. This was not a conventional air raid, it was not Operation Midnight Hammer, and it was not a series of heavy bunker-busting strikes. It was something far more unsettling to military planners. It was a complete, coordinated shutdown of an entire sovereign nation's air defense network, executed so cleanly that for 4 full hours, the regime lost the ability to see, track, or respond to anything happening in the skies above its own capital. And by the time the radar screens flickered back to life, the balance of power had quietly, decisively changed. To understand why a 4-hour radar blackout sent shockwaves through the highest levels of the Iranian government, you have to understand what Tehran had built over the last 2 decades. Iran did not leave its capital city unprotected. Over years of heavy spending, trade deals, and covert technology imports, they built what military analysts called one of the most densely layered air defense networks in the entire region. Around Tehran and its most critical military sites, the regime placed advanced radar systems bought from abroad alongside domestically upgraded air defense batteries. Systems like the Russian-made S-300 sat alongside native Iranian platforms designed specifically to track stealth aircraft, low-flying cruise missiles, and high-altitude surveillance drones. On paper, it was a terrifying wall of technology. It was designed to send a clear message to Washington and Tel Aviv: if you fly into our airspace, we will see you, we will lock onto you, and we will shoot you down before you reach your target. That system was the regime's ultimate insurance policy. It was the reason Iranian leaders believed they could speak aggressively on the global stage, conduct proxy operations across the Middle East, and maintain a hard line in nuclear negotiations. They believed that even if a superpower decided to attack, the sheer cost of fighting through that air defense shield would be too high for any American president to justify. The shield was built to create hesitation. It was built to make the enemy think twice before ever pressing the launch button. But every complex machine has a fatal flaw. The more advanced an air defense system becomes, the more it relies on a continuous, unbroken stream of digital data. A modern missile battery does not work in isolation. It relies on long-range early warning radars to spot a target hundreds of miles away. It relies on tracking radars to guide the weapon, and it relies on secure communications networks to connect commanders in bunkers to soldiers on the launch pads. If you cut any one of those digital threads, the entire multi-billion-dollar system becomes nothing more than expensive metal sitting in the dirt. And on that night, someone did not try to blow up the metal. They cut the thread. Imagine being an Iranian radar operator sitting inside a command bunker on the outskirts of Tehran. It is 2 o'clock in the morning. Your screens are showing clear skies, routine civilian air traffic routes, and normal military patrols. Then, in less than a second, every single display in front of you freezes. The digital tracks disappear. The communication lines to neighboring radar posts go dead. The automated target tracking software begins throwing out error codes that no operator has ever seen in a training exercise. You try to restart the system, but the backup servers fail to connect. You try to call your senior commander, but the tactical radios carry nothing but heavy static. Outside the bunker, the sky looks completely calm and empty. but on the monitors inside, your country's military shield has completely vanished. You are standing in the dark, knowing that whatever is happening in the sky above you, you have no way to stop it, no way to track it, and no way to warn the leadership sitting in the center of the city. This was not a mechanical malfunction. It was not a power grid failure. It was the moment the regime realized that the expensive wall they had spent 20 years building could be turned off with the flip of a digital switch. How do you blind an entire capital city's air defenses without firing a single missile or dropping a single bomb? To understand what happened during those 4 hours over Tehran, you have to look beyond traditional military firepower and step into the silent, invisible world of modern electronic warfare. This is the part of military power that rarely makes breaking news headlines, but it is the exact domain where modern wars are won or lost, long before any physical weapons ever strike a target. When most people picture a military operation, they think of stealth fighters crossing enemy borders, cruise missiles skimming over desert hills, and heavy explosions lighting up the night sky. But the United States military has spent decades perfecting a completely different kind of capability. It is called airborne electronic attack, combined with advanced cyber penetration. Instead of destroying physical buildings, these systems attack the electromagnetic spectrum itself. They target the radio frequencies, radar signals, and data networks that allow a modern military to function as a connected force. During that silent 4-hour window, specialized American aircraft, operating from international airspace far beyond the reach of Iranian coastal weapons, turned their full attention toward Tehran. Planes like the EA-18G Growler, working alongside high-altitude stealth platforms and unmanned cyber units, began flooding northern Iran's skies with targeted energy. But this was not simple high-power jamming. Old-fashioned jamming is like turning up a radio so loud that nobody can hear anything. It alerts the enemy instantly that they are being jammed. What happened over Tehran was far more subtle, precise, and terrifying. It is a technique known as digital radio frequency memory and cooperative cyber manipulation. Instead of simply blocking the Iranian radar signals with loud noise, advanced electronic warfare platforms capture the radar signals sent out by Iranian installations, alter the data inside those signals within microseconds, and send them back to the Iranian receivers. The radar screen does not show a giant wave of static. It shows what looks like a completely clear sky, or it displays false targets moving in directions that make no physical sense. The system tricks the operator into believing everything is normal while blinding the automated software beneath the surface. At the exact same moment, sophisticated cyber payloads that had been quietly planted inside key communications nodes were triggered remotely. These digital intrusions did not destroy the hardware. They simply froze the data flow between command centers and launch sites. A surface-to-air missile launcher standing in a field outside Tehran might have had full power and a loaded missile sitting on the rail, but the computer inside the launcher could no longer receive targeting data from the central radar miles away. The weapon was completely isolated, standing useless in the dark, while aircraft moved through the sky above. Think about what this level of technology actually means for modern strategy. For decades, military planners measured power by counting tanks, fighter jets, and artillery shells. But during those 4 hours, the Pentagon proved that raw physical hardware means almost nothing if your digital nervous system can be taken offline at will. It showed that an adversary can penetrate your most protected airspace, conduct high-value surveillance, or position assets for future action without ever giving you a legal or military reason to fire back. You cannot launch a surface-to-air missile at a ghost you cannot see, and you cannot defend a sky when your own instruments tell you nothing is there. While the skies above Tehran remained quiet, the situation inside the government's underground command bunkers was anything but calm. To truly understand why this operation hit the Iranian regime so hard, you have to look at how power actually works inside the country. The Islamic Republic is not just a single government running a nation. It is a very delicate, tense balance between 3 groups who constantly watch each other: the senior political clerics, the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the tens of millions of ordinary citizens living underneath them. The clerics hold total religious and political power, but they do not stay in control because the public loves them. They stay in power because the Revolutionary Guard enforces their rule, and the Revolutionary Guard stays loyal because the regime pays them, feeds their business empires, and gives them advanced weapons to prove they are strong. The whole system relies on one psychological factor: The belief that the military is strong enough to protect the country and keep absolute control. So think about what happened inside those bunkers during those 4 hours of total silence. Senior military officers were staring at frozen screens, unable to contact their own missile units. Phone calls were frantically made between political offices and military bases, but nobody had answers. The panic was not caused by falling bombs, it was caused by total helplessness. The commanders realized that if the United States had wanted to launch a massive strike right then, there was literally nothing standing in the way. The entire leadership was exposed, completely vulnerable and totally blind. This is why state media said almost nothing about what happened that night. When a government loses a physical building to a missile strike, they can show the damage on state television, blame foreign aggression, and use the images to rally public support. But how do you explain to your own people that your multi-billion-dollar defense network was quietly switched off while the city slept? You cannot show a picture of a frozen radar screen on the news without admitting that your ultimate shield is useless. Instead, the regime chose absolute silence. But inside the halls of power, paranoia spread quickly. Was there a high-level mole inside the defense network assisting the cyber intrusion? Had the Americans cracked the secret codes used by the Revolutionary Guard's private communication channels? When a military system fails so completely without physical damage, commanders start suspecting their own equipment, their own software, and eventually, each other. The Revolutionary Guard built its entire reputation on being an unbeatable force capable of standing up to global superpowers. In 4 quiet hours, that reputation was shattered behind closed doors. They did not lose a dramatic battle. They were simply shown that their control over their own sky was an illusion, and in a political system held together by fear and the appearance of strength, having your weakness exposed so cleanly is far more dangerous than losing a physical building. If you think this 4-hour operation was only about intimidating Tehran, you are missing the much bigger geopolitical chessboard. A military action executed in complete silence over a hostile foreign capital is never just a message for the local regime. It is a loud, deliberate demonstration aimed directly at rival global powers watching from Moscow, Beijing, and across the Middle East. When military intelligence agencies in Russia and China analyzed what happened over northern Iran that night, they were not looking at routine news headlines. They were reading satellite data, signal intelligence, and communications intercepts. Both Russia and China have invested heavily in supplying air defense systems, electronic hardware, and radar tech to regional partners like Iran. In many ways, Tehran's integrated defense shield was a live testing ground for non-Western military technology. By blinding that specific network so cleanly, the Pentagon sent an unmistakable message to every foreign power using or selling those same military systems. The message was simple: your most advanced hardware can be neutralized without us ever dropping a bomb. When an adversary realizes that their primary defense systems share the exact same digital vulnerabilities as the ones just taken offline in Tehran, it fundamentally changes their strategic calculations. This silent blackout also completely altered the balance of power among neighboring Gulf states. For years, countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar watched Iran use the threat of its missile force and air defense shield to dominate regional diplomacy. The fear was always that any major military confrontation would spiral out of control and devastate global energy markets. But by demonstrating the ability to turn off an enemy's air defense network without triggering a bloody, explosive war, the United States showed its regional partners a completely new level of control. Think about the psychological impact of this strategy compared to a traditional bombing raid. When you bomb a facility, you create martyrs, physical destruction, and international outrage. You give your adversary something visible to point at, complain about, and rebuild. But when you blind an entire country's military defenses for 4 hours and leave without leaving a single crater behind, you leave your enemy with nothing to show the world except their own powerlessness. It is the ultimate demonstration of quiet dominance. You demonstrate that you can enter their most guarded space, operate freely, and leave whenever you choose, all while leaving them completely unable to prove it even happened. That kind of capability creates a deep, lingering fear that no physical airstrike can ever match. It forces global rivals to realize that the rules of high-stakes military competition have changed, and the most dangerous weapon on the modern battlefield might be the one you never hear coming. What we witnessed during those 4 quiet hours over Tehran is not just a single military success story. It is a window into the future of global conflict. We are living in an era where the lines between peace, pressure, and open war have blurred beyond recognition. Wars are no longer announced with formal declarations, mass troop movements, or heavy artillery barrages. They are fought silently in the electromagnetic spectrum, inside digital networks, and across server farms thousands of miles away from the front lines. For over 40 years, the Iranian regime built its entire regional identity around control, leverage, and the threat of catastrophic retaliation. They treated the skies above their capital as an unshakable fortress, a clear boundary that no outside power could cross without paying a devastating price. Today, that fortress still stands physically. The radar towers are still spinning, the missile batteries are still parked in their positions, and state media continues to broadcast loud messages of military strength to the public. But beneath that confident surface, the fundamental reality has shifted. The gun Iran once pointed at the world relies on a digital nervous system that can be quietly switched off whenever a superior adversary decides it is time to move. In modern warfare, victory is rarely about who fires the biggest weapon or who leaves the deepest crater in the desert. It is won by whoever controls the invisible pathways of information, signal processing, and digital network security that modern militaries need just to see what is coming. Right now, in the quiet waters of the Persian Gulf, warships continue their patrols. In command bunkers across the Middle East, officers stare at radar monitors, secretly wondering if what they are seeing is real or just another illusion carefully placed on their screens. And in Tehran, a government that built its entire existence on fear and absolute control is discovering the cold reality of modern power. You can build all the fortresses you want, but in a world driven by digital warfare, no wall is high enough to keep out the quiet. If this breakdown helped you actually understand what is happening in global geopolitics instead of just watching surface-level headlines fly past, subscribe right now. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think silent operations like this prevent bigger wars? Or do they just push us closer to an unpredictable explosion? I genuinely read your thoughts. Share this video with someone who wants the real story behind world power moves.